Hi folks, I'm Steve Jones. Today I want to talk to you about the Puritans and the first Thanksgiving. You remember when you were in elementary school and it was time for Thanksgiving and your teachers had you make those handprint turkeys? Okay, you would take it home and give it to your mom. And then they had you make construction paper pilgrim hats, and you wore those in a little Thanksgiving play. That was fun, but most of the things they told you back then, it was wrong. You know that not everybody aboard the Mayflower was a pilgrim. There were about 100 people on that ship, and only about a third of them were actually pilgrims. The rest of them, people that didn't care anything about religion or religious liberty. They just wanted out of England for one reason or another, to start a new life. They weren't even supposed to land in Massachusetts. They were supposed to go to Virginia. The Jamestown colony was already there. It's actually starting to thrive by 1620. But a storm in the Atlantic blew them north, and they landed in Massachusetts. That's why they had to write the Mayflower Compact. The Mayflower Compact was a document that meant they would all agree to work together. And Massachusetts wasn't really a wilderness. It was already home to the Wampanoag Indians. Since about the 1580s, English sailors had been bringing their ships up along the coast of New England. They would do some whaling, they would do some fishing, but they also would lure Native Americans out to their ships, and then they would kidnap them. One of those that they kidnapped was somebody that we know as Squanto. He was kidnapped, taken to England, spent many years there. I think people are not quite sure how long. He learned English, and then he became an interpreter on another English ship that came back. And there was another Wampanoag Indian by the name of Samoset. He also knew how to speak English. And so he was one of two interpreters to the Wampanoag chief Osamequin, and they were able to tell him, be careful around these English. And so he did. He didn't just take his group and run out to the English and help them survive. He hung back. He stayed back and he watched them from November of 1620 all the way to March of 1621. And then he decided to approach them. The reason he approached them was not because he wanted to help them survive. He wanted a military alliance. You see, those English that had already been sailing along the coast, well, they were close enough that they brought European diseases to North America, diseases that the New England Indians had no immunity to. The tribe was being decimated by illness. They didn't know what it was and they couldn't do anything about it. We, of course, know it's European disease. But in the end, the Wampanoag society, their population numbers had been cut so drastically that the neighboring Narragansetts were starting to move in on their territory. In March of 1621, when Osamequin decided to actually approach the English, he did it as a political measure. He wanted to see if he could ally with the English. The English, not too big in number, but they did have guns, and that was intimidating. Of course, the English wanted something in return. They wanted help planting. They wanted help hunting. Osamequin said, sure, we can do that. And they come up with a mutual alliance. This thing is for the benefit of both. Now, they may have had something of a feast to commemorate that. If they did, that's as close as they got to a first Thanksgiving. In 1769, okay, there was a group in Plymouth, Massachusetts, that wanted to boost their tourism in 1769. So they started to play up the fact that there was a religious ceremony, the first Thanksgiving, and they wanted people to come there and celebrate it. By 1827, a woman named Sarah Hale, who was an editor for Godey's magazine, which was an early women's magazine, started a campaign for a National Thanksgiving Day. She wanted to capitalize on those same traits that the founding story had. And she thought we needed a National Thanksgiving. Well, this falls on deaf ears until 1863. What's going on in 1863? Oh yeah, Civil War. When Abraham Lincoln went to Gettysburg in November of 1863 to dedicate the Gettysburg National Memorial Cemetery, he also had planned for the very next week a Thanksgiving celebration. And by the end of 1863, when it looked like the Union was finally winning the Civil War, that we could use a day of Thanksgiving. And so it gets set. It gets uniformly set at the tail end of November. When we get into the Depression, the 1930s, 1939 to be specific, Franklin D. Roosevelt took Thanksgiving, left it on Thursday, but he moved it back a week because he wanted there to be an extra week of Christmas shopping. FDR, the New Deal, stimulate the economy, more Christmas shopping, and he used Thanksgiving to do it.